Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Hi, my name is Mikhaila Peterson.
Letting go. 13. You become lightheaded, loom in the body, don't mind, just go. It takes just a couple of minutes what we do to arrive at a deep impact on our physiology, deeper than in science was thought possible. It's all here.
I've decided, and maybe I'm in the wrong, I could be in the wrong for sure, but I've decided that the government should realistically reopen businesses. So that's number one. We need to reopen the country.
But it started hitting my skin, and doctors were telling me, you know, you're doing it yourself, stop, because I kept going and saying, my skin is like dying, what's happening? And they're like, well, stop scratching. And I was like, you don't understand. So I'm in doctor's offices, I'm like crying, and they're like, well, you're crazy. I was like, okay, this isn't working out for me.
What is it like to have Jordan Peterson as a dad? Is it weird? Do you have to check yourself constantly, make sure you're on steady ground and not say anything ridiculous?
No, not at all, not at all. I didn't realize it was weird until I went away to university and then kind of saw, like, just was away for a while. And then when I came back to the house, especially because the house is full of like paintings and masks and statues and like 32 different paint colors, and I came back and was like, oh, maybe he's a bit eccentric.
Mikhaila Peterson has her own podcast. You can find her on Facebook and YouTube, Mikhaila Peterson, and Mikhaila Alexis on Twitter. Thanks for coming, Mikhaila. How are you doing today?
I'm not doing too badly. How are you?
I'm doing well. I thought you were going to say I'm not doing too well. I was going to get a little bit worried there.
No, things are not going so badly.
Okay, great. The first thing I wanted to ask you about is your YouTube channel, obviously. You've had a very successful podcast now for a couple years. Tell us how it all started. How did you even get into all this?
So I started the podcast because I'd been on a number of people's podcasts talking about I had extensive health, like chronic health issues that were, I guess, shocking enough that people were interested in it. And I managed to put them into remission using a diet that was extremely controversial, understandably so. So I was on a lot of other people's podcasts talking about that journey. And then I had people reach out and say, you know, maybe this is something you're not so bad at. And I really enjoy talking to people. I've found, especially throughout this whole coronavirus thing, it's allowed me to, have some social contact. So I'm really enjoying it, but I got into it because I had people ask me. I also have some connections in the health kind of area, the lifestyle area, and then weirdly enough, the political area. So I've been able to have a lot of different guests on the show, and I don't have too many concerns about who I'm talking to because I've already been, I'm Jordan Peterson's daughter, which already puts me into a controversial spot, whether or not I like it. And then I had this diet I'm on, which is just eating meat. So that forced me into a controversial spot. Not that I wanted to be in one, so I figured I might as well have conversations with people that maybe other people aren't as willing to have. You guys obviously are.
Yes. Wait, we're controversial or willing to have conversations?
Both. I was going to say willing to have conversations.
I don't think I'm that controversial, producer Justin. I think I'm pretty nice. You mentioned it being controversial, your diet, which surprised me. But one of the articles I printed out was a Vice article.
Oh, no.
And I only printed it out because, I don't know, maybe I want to be Alex Jones secretly. But it's called your diet. This is a quote, the advocate of the dubious meat-only lion diet. Dubious being like...
Dubious.
No, you can't believe that. That's like, where does this come from? Are you getting attacked by vegans? Are you getting, how is this controversial? I don't understand.
Well, I kind of get it. I was always very skeptical about diet, and you get told what to eat and what not to eat by so many different people, and they all have different perspectives. And, veganism is the healthy way to go. Gluten-free, low calorie, low fat, low salt. And then I came out and said, hey, and the way I put it, if people listen to me, is I had a very severe autoimmune disease, idiopathic arthritis. I had my hip and ankle replaced. It wasn't a casual autoimmune disease. Mm-hmm. And then I had, 4 other diagnoses on top of that. And I decided to do an elimination diet and ended up eliminating absolutely everything except for meat, which is something basically people can tolerate across the board, regardless of how damaged they possibly are. And it put all my disorders into remission, which boggled my mind just as much as it boggled everybody else's. So when I get a negative article from Vice being like, this dubious lion diet, which is what I've called is ruminant meat, salt, and water elimination diet, I kind of get where they're coming from, because it does sound fairly ridiculous from somebody who doesn't have any background in nutrition, and even from people who do have a bit of a background in nutrition.
You mentioned what we're told to eat. How much have you looked into like the meat, the dietary pyramid and stuff? I remember as a kid, we were always referred to that in like little pamphlets and stuff.
Yeah.
Not too seriously maybe, but I've always thought that maybe like people are being paid to push certain things. Have you looked into that? That's just me possibly being completely wrong.
Oh no, you're not wrong at all. There were food lobbyists, like grains were huge, even dairy. Huge dairy lobby, huge grain lobby to push things like cereal into the diet, which we've only been eating for 100 years. So this isn't part of the natural human food pyramid if it's been around for 100 years. So the food pyramid focuses a lot on carbs, a lot on grains, which is fairly new for diets, and it puts meat fairly high up, which is something people have been eating for millions of years. That's part of the reason our brains developed so well. It's because we were eating like high-fat meat. So yeah, there is something fishy going around, especially with the food pyramid, and it's fairly recent in the last 100 years.
Do people still rely on that?
I would say so. I mean, chronic disease is at an incredibly high rate in the U.S., seriously. Canada too, but yeah, I would say people rely on the food pyramid. I mean, when I was younger, like my family didn't eat unhealthily. It's not like we were just eating candy. I did like whole grains and that bread that nobody wants to eat that's covered in seeds.
Oh God.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah,
Turns out that
exactly.
wasn't any better, but it definitely tasted worse.
Oh yeah, keep seeds off my bread and fruits out of salad for me. Unless it's a fruit salad, then I don't want fruits anywhere near my salad.
Yeah.
There's one of your videos that you posted last April, I believe it was, about the lockdowns. And you said that you were against the closing down of businesses. Obviously, there should be some sort of, I don't know if it's restricting some things or protecting the vulnerable, but has your opinion changed since April? Has it gone in either direction at all?
No, I put that out fairly early on, yeah. And at the time I was in Florida, which is one of the, well, now it's less restrictive, although everyone freaked out in like March and April. But no, my opinion hasn't changed. And I actually got COVID when I went. I was in Serbia because my dad was really ill and there was a neurological center there that was good at what they do. So we were in Serbia. Serbia had completely opened up. There were no restrictions. No one was wearing masks. You saw like one mask a block. And so there was a huge spike. It was right after elections. Like they were like, there's no coronavirus here. And then the elections ended and they were like, just kidding. Everybody has it now. So I got it. My husband got it. My kid got it. My nanny got it. My dad got it. We all got it. And it wasn't as, I thought that if I was going to get it because I've had previous health issues, that it was going to be kind of a catastrophe. And it wasn't for me. It was about 18 days of a flu. And anyway, back to businesses. I'm lucky enough to be able to work from home, right? So this hasn't affected me. But there are a lot of people it has affected. And if you actually look at the statistics about how coronavirus spreads, it spreads in places that are not ventilated well, filled with a bunch of people who aren't wearing masks. So allowing big stores like Costco and Walmart to remain open and shutting all these tiny stores that are, for the most part, abiding by the really strict rules that are already implemented with the number of people inside and masks, making those guys shut down. Even with the handouts the government's giving, it's ruining businesses, these small businesses. And that's not even where coronavirus spreads from. So there's this fear, and I can understand where the government's coming from a bit. They're getting pushed from both sides, right? They have a lockdown and business owners are like, my business is going to fail now. We've been doing this for almost a year. And then they open up and people are going, well, you're not restricting activity enough. Everyone's going to die. And I think the main mistake we've probably made in the last 9 months is they're like, oh my God, hospitals are at capacity. We were almost at capacity before coronavirus. Like if you went into Emerge in Toronto, you were treated in the hallway a lot of the time. If we're in the middle of a pandemic, why wouldn't top priority be get more beds? Like find more beds. Spend 8 months getting more beds and training people to deal with ICU cases.
Didn't they say they were going to do that?
I think they did. Like they did, I thought back in April or May.
They did, and they've had a long time to try to accomplish that while the hospitals were rejecting people.
I know. And I heard in Manitoba that their plan is to convert hotels to ICU units so that there aren't people that they turn away, because that would be the problem. But it's like, why wasn't that the focus? If this is a virus that we can't really stop, right? If it's a flu-like virus, it is. If we can't really stop it, then we should be focusing on expanding ICUs, not shutting down small businesses that aren't actually the cause of the spread.
And a few weeks ago, they actually came out with the numbers for Ontario. It was like less than 1% of cases, and not serious cases or deaths, but less than 1% of cases coming from retail, both the customers and the employees, and then a couple hundred cases from restaurants. So the numbers for even those, not even including the ones that are serious, are incredibly low. So I wouldn't believe that the government doesn't know this. They would have to know this at least a bit beforehand, yet they're still pushing on with the lockdowns.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, I'm inclined to believe that it's just fear and pressure from people who don't know, but it's weird. I mean, they should know too that 80% of the spread comes from 20% of the people, and those 20% are going to these like super spreading events where, like I said, it's poorly One of the things that boggled my mind about Toronto is they said no dining indoors, and they set up tents outside, which is literally less ventilated than the indoor parts. It made no sense. So they just set up places that would technically be an easier way to spread the virus. It's either like something weird is going on, or people are just really stupid.
That's what I've been saying a lot lately about the news media. You're bad at your job or you're stupid. I'm guessing maybe they're kind of the same things. Have you gotten any pushback? I'm not sure how much you've talked about this on your podcasts, but have you gotten any pushback from YouTube about what you said, specifically around lockdowns or anything? Because this video is going to have a warning in front of it just from us talking about this.
I think so. I got demonetized in June, and it was a couple of weeks after I put out a video saying I had coronavirus, this is what it was like. And I didn't say I had no symptoms, right? I had a flu for an extended, it wasn't like a week long, it was like 18 days. I had a brief fever. Like, it wasn't a good time. And I like,
You sure?
So I wasn't, but I put out my experience of having it. And then a week or so later, I was demonetized without warning, and I haven't been remonetized.
So you're completely demonetized now?
Yeah, like the entire channel.
Join the club.
Yeah, and there was no, I thought that you were supposed to get a strike or warnings or something, but it was just like demonetized. So I would assume it had something to do with that.
Well, most of the time, this is from my personal experience, not the Rebel News channel, but my personal experience, they either secretly or pretendly come up with a list of things that you violated, and then they retroactively say, hey, you violated all this before, and so you're demonetized now. That's what they said to me. They got me to plead my case and then rejected it anyways. So
that's a waste of time.
It really was. It's a story for another time, maybe.
Yeah. I know Crowder was demonetized for a really long time, right? And that's why he started his mug club thing. Yeah,
and well, they let me back into the monetization program, but your reach and your ad revenue is just completely gone. So like I'm technically monetized on my own personal channel, but view count dropped by like at first it dropped by like 90%, and then with inactivity it just went all the way down. So
interesting. I'm lucky enough that I have like other sponsors and things, so it hasn't made a difference, and I don't think I've been shadow banned or like, it hasn't seemed that fishy. And I guess I was certainly demonetized, but I mean, it's also possible that ad companies are like, we don't want to post on any channels that talk about these topics because they're controversial. And so I don't know what's going on, but
I'm not sure people advertising, the people who view the ads, I don't think they care personally. If Pfizer wants to run an ad, I don't think a normal person's going to be like, I disagree with this ad being on this video. Like, there are people out there who just find any ad that's on your channel, though, and will say, hey, do you know you're advertising on this conspiracy theorist channel?
oh yeah.
Those people are really fun. Social media affecting people is something, because I think that you and your father have a way of breaking down like a traditional, let's say, party lines or political viewpoints. Do you see the way social media affects people in terms of their opinions on things? Do you think it's negative? Do you think it's positive? How do you think like a regular, let's say, 22-year-old person absorbs information which could be completely slanted in one direction? Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a disaster that you can see specifically this year. I don't remember what paper I read or news article or something on how social media creates tribalism. And I've certainly seen that even for myself. Like you follow, let's say Twitter, you follow a number of people, generally speaking, that you're more inclined to agree with. And then you follow who they follow, right? And so you end up in this you can easily end up in a bubble of people who agree or have similar thoughts to you. And then this happened with the election, right? I mean, everybody who, like, I was certain Trump was going to win from who I was. And there's, there's speculation and all that, and I don't even want to get into that. But I was sure it was going to be less close than it was. And that was because the people I follow are more right-wing than left-wing. And so, and I'm sure that happened in the last election too, with the people on the left were like, how is this even possible? Because they're not friends with anybody who are on the right. So I think social media is really hard, and especially if you're younger and you don't know that, I think it's really easy to get caught up when everybody you see agrees with you. It's hard to understand how someone could have a different viewpoint. So I try and follow as many news sources as I can so I can see stories from all the different angles, because they all have some sort of bias, but it's very tricky. And it's also been tricky now that we're socially isolated as well, because all of our interactions are on our little tribes on social media.
Do you put yourself in any political, do you call yourself right or left or center or far left or far right? You got to put Alex Jones's voice on when you say the far left or the far right, the Patriots. Do you put yourself anywhere on the spectrum?
I've put myself in the libertarian group since I was like for a very long time. I wouldn't, I'd probably classify myself more right-wing. Maybe it's because I have a kid. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit older. Maybe it's because some of the left-wing things I find completely insane. But I was never like, Trump got elected. I was never a huge Trump fan. I thought, okay, he's less irritating than Hillary Clinton. Like, that would be entertaining.
Not a fan of pantsuits?
No.
No?
It wasn't that. It was an attitude thing. It was like even people on the left didn't really like her.
No.
To be fair.
They didn't.
But I've never, I guess that's happening to a lot of people though. I was never conservative. But I guess looking back, I went to university. I read a whole bunch of books on feminism and anti-feminism. I just read all of them and then made a decision about what I was going to think. And that did end up being more right-wing than the people who were in my classes. But a lot of those people ended up being super left-leaning. So I don't know. I guess slightly right. I'm trying to stay center, but.
Is there a Mikhaila Peterson red pill story out there somewhere? Does that exist? I'm sure somebody tried to tie to something like that.
Not exactly, actually.
We can be right now. Mikhaila Peterson red pill story.
My red pill story, it's not going to be what you're expecting. When I recovered from having an autoimmune disorder and realized that the 17 years or 15 years of being in the medical system didn't help me and shielded me from information that was actually true, that really changed my perspective. because I didn't think, you're told when you're diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, for instance, that there's something wrong with your body and there's nothing you can do about it. And we don't really know if it's genetic or not, but you're stuck with this for life and these are the medications you can take, and thank God for them. And that's what you're taught, and that's what I fully believed. I was so anti, someone would say gluten-free and I'd scoff at them like, oh, you're just a Californian hippie. What are you talking about? And then I went to school for science for a couple of years. I really worked on trying to read. I read thousands of articles trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I was like, oh, there's actually science behind some of this nutritional stuff. Why wasn't my doctor telling me about this? Like the link between celiac disease, it's a gluten intolerance, autoimmune disorder. I was like, why didn't anyone test me for that? And so my red pill moment was probably losing faith in the medical system, because I was on 7 medications. I couldn't think. I was sleeping all the time. I was extremely ill. And I'm a completely different person now that I've done it a more natural way. So once I lost faith in the medical community and thought, just because, doctors don't necessarily know what they're talking about, then I was like, what else is out there that isn't true? And then my dad went viral, and there were newspaper articles describing things he'd said that he'd never said. So it was, oh my God, my entire life I thought doctors knew what they were talking about, and they don't necessarily, even though they think they do. News articles are misrepresenting my dad, so I can't trust them. And then since then it was like, well, who knows? It's like, don't trust anything anybody says.
That's a good quote. I would say trust nothing as well. It makes me think about like the media coverage before the internet, maybe not even before that, like maybe 2005 before. If a celebrity got railroaded by the media, there would be no way for them to respond. And I wonder how many of them had to deal with that. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but.
Well, there's I think I watched Miley Cyrus on Rogan, and she mentioned, she'd go out with somebody and then 4 months later it would come out in the newspaper after they'd already been broken up, and it'd be like, Miley Cyrus is getting married or pregnant or something. And she said there was no way to counteract it. Like with podcasts now, it makes it so much easier, especially if you have a following on YouTube. It's a completely different, it's weird. It's better, but then you can get stuck in these tribes, which is definitely problematic.
This happens to me all the time, you guys. I'm always Andrew seen with Justin Bieber, Austin Matthews. Who is he dating? Is it Austin or Bieber? I go after the mustache, guys. I'm just kidding. Wim Hof is one you just did recently. I watched most of it. It's crazy. I'd heard of him before. I've heard of him being able to survive these insane environmental elements just through his breathing techniques, and obviously it's more than just that. But he got you and your dad to do that on air. I was watching that. It made me uncomfortable.
Did you do it?
No. I was watching it while I was working, so that probably don't want to pass out of my desk.
Yeah.
But holding my breath for that long probably makes me uncomfortable. Makes me think of David Blaine and stuff like that, whom I think he mentioned on. I think David Blaine mentioned him on his Joe Rogan podcast. See how many plugs we can get in for Joe Rogan here. So what was that like? Are you taking his advice about the cold showers?
Yeah. I've actually been doing cold showers for about 5 years. Since I started getting into like diet and lifestyle, I thought, oh, maybe all these things that I put in the category of quacky. It doesn't help that whenever you Google some of these doctors who actually do know what they're talking about but don't push the pharmaceutical route, it comes up under Quack Watch, whatever website that is.
Of course.
Like that's so aggravating. I disregarded so many people that I now know were actually telling the truth as quacks because of that stupid website.
I've never heard of it, but
quackwatch.org.
You can't give them plugs like this.
They suck.
They suck. Remember that, you guys. Is it supposed to be the same effects as like cryotherapy?
It's way more intense than cryotherapy. I did cryotherapy. So they put you in this like tank and freeze you kind of, but it doesn't go very deep. It kind of is just on the outside. It gives you a little bit of euphoria afterwards and calms you down. So I would say similar, but it's not as effective. Like if you take an ice bath or even a 0-degree water bath, the sense of calm after that is incredible. It is unpleasant though. Like it does hurt.
So how long are you taking these showers for? Or are you also doing ice baths? Because I watch a lot of like MMA stuff, and they obviously
Oh,
do
yeah.
a lot of this stuff. How long are you showering freezing cold for?
So I always took kind of lukewarm showers, so I don't think it was hard for me. I was never one of those scalding showers person. So I started with 30 seconds of very cold water, and I've gone up to 2 minutes. I'm usually sticking at 30 seconds now.
That's it? That's all you have to do?
Well, that's all I'm doing.
Okay.
I think it like you can work your way up. You can start at 15 seconds and work your way up, but there are benefits even from the 15 seconds stuff. But having an ice dip is way more intense and more beneficial than a cold shower, but I don't do those very often. I did them. I went to Russia last year, and they would have those banyas, which are ridiculously hot, and ice baths. And having that combination is like, it's pretty cool. It makes you feel good.
So the polar bear guys were onto something, I guess.
They were.
They were. I already mentioned one of these articles. This one's called "Drug Experts on Jordan Peterson Seeking Treatment." And then this one.
Yeah, drug experts.
This one's the Telegraph. Oh, you want to comment on that one? I don't like Vice at all, so feel free to
I don't
crap
like
all over them.
Vice either.
Telegraph. I just searched for ones that involved you. Of course, almost all of them had your name in it. And this one's "The Controversial Family Plagued by Ill Health." And then
That's fair, though. Accurate.
So my question was going to be, how does it feel to have people like discussing your family? Like your father's a big figure, and you're a big figure now too. But you guys aren't, I don't see you as controversial at all. And like people who try to make your dad out to what he's not, it really confuses me. I don't know what the angle is, but how does it feel when people are just trying to, like, the term is hit piece, obviously. How does it feel when you're reading about your own family's problems? UK, Russia, all this stuff?
It depends on the article. Most of the time, I'm pretty patient with it because I can kind of understand. Even just being in it is crazy enough. Like some of these health things that happened were just so insane that I'm like, I get it when people write negative pieces. So usually it doesn't bother me. If there's an extremely rude undertone, like my dad gets articles where people are like, it's dripping hatred. And first of all, that's not proper journalism because you shouldn't be able to read the bias in the words. So it's just kind of sad that some of these news sources is like, it's screaming the bias at you when you read it. And if it's a news source like that, well, that's why a lot of them are dying. So does it bother me? Yeah, it's upsetting to read, especially if you're dealing with health problems. It's upsetting to have those like thrown at you, especially if you're misrepresented. But I think it's just a sign that some of these news sources are dying.
What did you do before you were a podcaster?
I had a blog for a while. I was actually running my dad's business.
Oh, okay.
So when he went viral, I was doing his schedule. Like I started out with his scheduling because he started getting an overwhelming number of email requests. So I was doing his scheduling. I started all his social media pages and ran those. So I kind of helped with that. I made clips, like I did whatever. I made clips on YouTube. I got him to meet with people. So I did all of that for a while, and then I started, but I was also doing my blog at the same time because I had these chronic health problems, and I was like, if this can help somebody else, I kind of feel this obligation to write about my experience. And then that started picking up, and I started growing. Oh, and then I went on Rogan, and obviously that, anybody who ends up on Rogan, that skyrockets them. So I did more and more on my social media on that part, and then more recently I've kind of shifted more to what I'm doing, and I just keep an eye on kind of Dad's brand, but there are other people who are handling that now, which is a bit of a relief to have a bit of separation.
Did you get to go all around the world from that? Like, were you part of the tours and stuff?
I wasn't.
No?
I wasn't. At the time he was touring, I just had a baby. So I missed some of that. My mom joined him on his touring, his insane touring. He went to 180 cities.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. It was wild.
Was there any countries that you couldn't go to? Like there was a demand? Because sometimes certain countries don't want people going there. No?
No, they were like he's seen as controversial by like Vice and BuzzFeed, but he's actually not. So everywhere we've gone, even we were in Serbia in the summer, and it was insane. We were walking around at one point, and we were all in masks. This is when you had to wear, because they switched from being completely open to being completely closed. And someone came up to me because they recognized my daughter, Scarlett. So
Why?
we were recognized there more than I would say here.
Why did somebody recognize your daughter?
I guess through a story on my Instagram.
That would weird me out.
People are nice though.
Okay, well.
Very nice. Everyone's been very nice, but he hasn't had any problems with any countries. Everyone's been overwhelmingly positive.
That's good. Have you been injected into these political conversations? Are people trying to constantly rope you into them like I am?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm already commenting. I get a lot of people who are like, why are you just copying your dad? And they don't know me, right? Like I went to university and I bought 24 books on feminism and anti-feminism, read them all, bitched up a storm, and then gave all the books to my dad. And then he read them all. So
really the story, you're the brainchild
I'm
behind.
not saying that at all. But
I'm
like
saying
I'm not like copying a political thing. Like the COVID thing did bug me. It still bugs me. But mostly it's because some of it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm getting injected into certain conversations that I don't think I would It's hard to say what would have happened if my dad hadn't like gone viral. I did get picked up in the food area and went to a couple of conferences before I went to Rogan.
Yeah,
So
I saw that video.
It's really hard to say what would happen, but I'm definitely getting, especially because he's been so ill that I guess some places are like, well, grab the other Peterson, see what she has to say.
Don't talk so poorly about yourself.
That is not what I meant.
Well, if you're...
It's a bit what I meant.
Okay, very good. How do you feel about the anti-lockdown protests? And also, how do you feel about politicians not talking about them at all?
There's one, Maxime Bernier is talking about it, right?
Yeah, but he
Other
doesn't
than
really
him.
have, he doesn't really have any power.
No, he doesn't. It's hard to say. I know Ford's daughter came out. I don't know if you saw that. She had something. She got kind of harassed in the media for being like trying to push healthy lifestyle for, it's like, what about our immune system?
She
Which,
dared
like,
to have an
fair.
Instagram story.
Yeah, an Instagram story, and then
they
got kind of
smeared her,
slaughtered. So
Would you go to one of these protests?
I wouldn't.
No?
I wouldn't go. I'm not a protest person. But that's also because I don't think that the people protesting are in the wrong at all, right? Like, I got annoyed because I was putting up on my Instagram, I was saying, hey, like, just so people know, there is this protest, this anti-lockdown protest. I don't think it's going to make a difference. But here it is. But then the problem with some of those protests is, like, you get store owners who are protesting because they don't have a job, totally reasonable. And then you get the fringe people who are, like, yelling at people with pro-Trump signs at an anti-lockdown protest in Toronto. And then you get the news and it's zooming in on these people yelling at people. Like I went to someone, I think I was getting my eyelashes done. And she was like, she got yelled at by somebody in one of these parades. And I was like, that's so annoying that you can take something that's worthy of a protest, like shutting down all the small businesses, and then you get the wild people who are like, just make it about whatever they want to be yelling about. So no, I wouldn't go.
Well, some of the people are being outed as possibly being like government agents. Some people are saying crazy things. I shouldn't even get into it. We've covered it so much before. But the fringe people either purpose...
It's not helpful to the cause. Yeah. And
at the Adamson barbecue, which is the one that made international news, I was there, I think it was the first day it was the day the cops all came with all the horses and everything.
That was wild.
And the media actually chose to, started across the street, like straight on, and then they chose to come over here so that you could only see the police blocking the entrance. You couldn't see the big, I would say 300 or 400 people on the other side. It's really interesting. But at the same time, there was a guy who went up to a reporter from CP24. You guys suck, you're fake news, you're trash. And then the guy's like, well, like, how much of my stuff do you watch? Like, is there anything you can point to? He's like, I'm going to be honest, I don't watch CP24, but I imagine you're liars as well.
Great.
And I'm just like, so you're accusing them of being liars, but you also don't know, like, I can't stand CNN. That's because I've watched it. I can tell you all of their anchors and probably why they suck, Don Lemon. But I'm not just going to be like, CP24, ex-reporter, who I've never seen before. You are a piece of garbage, even though I've never seen you. So there's two sides to all of that,
Yeah.
even though I pretty much support what's going on there. Can't stop a person. I think the chaining up of businesses is too far. And I think
That's scary, huh?
Yeah, and I think the cavalry, one's a church, one's horses.
Cavalry?
That's too far as well. Like, that's just totally not
A
necessary.
little. Yeah, a little.
And they lined the streets, and then around the corner where people were trying to park to participate, they were ticketing every car that was there too. So they had a plan of what they were going to execute there.
I guess they just don't want, like, if everybody opened up, there would be nothing they could do about it.
That's the
And
general
so they're
message,
like,
I feel like.
we don't want this to look too successful, even though it was.
Well, then conspiracies came out that the barbecue owner is Illuminati. Well, they said he's...
Yeah, that seems likely.
They use numerology to figure this out. I don't know how you feel about that. The adding of numbers and things.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
I wanted to ask about what your inbox is like. Like your Instagram messages, your Twitter DMs. Are these full of hate? Are they full of guys? Are they full of diet questions? What are they like?
Okay, that's an interesting question.
I thought so.
That was an interesting question. So I have 4 email inboxes, which is probably not making my life easier. You think that you split it up that way, and it doesn't actually make your life easier. So I have 4 of those, and then I have all my social medias. I would say 30%, maybe 25% overall are people asking diet questions. So these are people who are chronically ill and who have been through the medical system for 15 years and tried absolutely everything. And they're at the point where they're like, fuck it, maybe I'll try an all meat diet, right? Or like reaching for straws. And I try and get back to those people because sometimes they only need a tiny bit of encouragement. Just be like, give it a shot for a month and see what happens.
Thumbs up emoji in there. Throw a couple of those.
Try it.
Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Oh my God. I
You
forgot
just-
that was a...
You canceled our channel.
I forgot
channel
that
is
was a
now
thing you're
over.
not allowed to do.
You can't also drink milk as well. That kind of died out, didn't it, Justin?
What was the milk thing?
White supremacists drinking milk.
I vaguely remember
It
hearing
started
about
on
that.
the Shia LaBeouf live stream. You remember when he was doing the "He Cannot Divide Us" thing?
Yeah.
People showed up and started drinking milk there, and that was supposed to be white supremacists too. It kind of died out. So did the circle thing once people started showing like pictures of NBA players doing this after 3-point shooters and Obama doing that.
Oh.
So we're
You're
getting
like,
really off
maybe
topic
we've been
here.
doing this for a while.
Maybe it's something chefs can't do this anymore. You can't say things are okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, inboxes.
Yes.
So I think the majority of my followers are male, 73%. I have a huge overlap with Joe Rogan. Bigger overlap with Joe Rogan than my dad, which is interesting. Maybe, maybe not. But almost everything is positive. I would say the most negative stuff comes from random people I don't follow on Twitter. But most of the DMs are people being really nice. And which is good because you always remember the negative ones. It's amazing how much positivity you can get and get one negative one and be like, well, what about that person? And
Are
it's
we ever
like,
responding to these negative ones?
if I'm really stressed out and the comment is public, sometimes. I try not to though, because the best way to handle that is to just write it off as someone who's having a bad day and ignore them. And if I'm not stressed out, like before the last year, those things didn't bother me at all. Even the negative articles at BuzzFeed, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Whatever.
That's too nice. Somebody wrote an article, the National Post wrote an article about my cameraman, and I made like 3 videos.
That's different though. That's different though. If they go after somebody else, like it's different if they go after you, because you can take that. But if they go after somebody else, then you get into like a protective mode. That's completely different.
He's my son, damn it. No, he's not. One more question, I think, and then we can let you go. We're holding you hostage here for at least 2 hours, it sounds like. It's going to sound really simple, but what is the point to what you're doing? What do you hope to accomplish, and what are you hoping to accomplish from all of this?
My main goal This is my main goal. So I was so sick that it's hard to imagine for somebody. It's hard for me to imagine now that I'm not sick anymore. I wanted to die like every day getting up. I was really ill, and I think I would have died if I hadn't got my multiple autoimmune disorders under control. So my goal, which isn't a secret goal either, is to talk to really interesting people I want to talk to, spread their ideas, expand my audience so that I can also tell people how I managed to heal. I'm writing a book, and that's going to go into the details behind, how I came to this diet, some of the science behind why it might be worth a shot, right? Like you can try things for 6 weeks. It's safer than being put on immune suppressants. So, initially when I did this, when I healed, I didn't want to talk about the diet because it was so weird and I didn't understand it and it made me uncomfortable. And I was like, I just want to be kind of like left alone and be happy now. But then I had a couple of these recurrences of autoimmune symptoms, and they were so horrible that in the middle of them, I was like, man, if there's anyone else feeling like this and they could feel better doing what I did, then I want to be able to reach out to them. So I would say my goal is to help people who are really suffering not suffer as much anymore, even if that's by doing something that's unconventional.
End of sentence. Okay. Is there any favorites of who you've interviewed so far? Or is it really an interview, or is it just a conversation?
It's kind of an interview.
Yeah.
Like I was worried about starting them because I was a little bit nervous, and so I've kind of turned it into an interview. I was like, ask a question, get a response, which makes it really easy for me, and I get to learn a bunch. I interviewed Dan Crenshaw, which was really cool. He's very cool. Like anyone who gets through the Navy SEALs is cool in my book. Jocko Willink. Matthew McConaughey, I almost died. I cried after the podcast.
You cried?
Yeah.
Of joy?
No, I'd gotten so nervous that my camera hadn't worked properly and neither had my microphone.
It's
and I was
all
just
gone.
like, anyway, it worked out fine, but Matthew McConaughey. And then this Wim Hof one was absolutely incredible. He is such an interesting person, and I got to do it with my dad, and he's been so sick. So I kind of just spent the episode sitting there smiling about like, hey, my dad's able to do a podcast again. So I'd say those are the top ones. I did do also another one with this guy named Bjorn Lomborg, who he's not as well known as the other names I just popped off, but that was really good about an accurate representation of climate change and what to do about it. That was really interesting. So I'm talking to random people. I'm going to be talking to a polyglot, like somebody who knows,
I don't know what that is.
He knows 7 languages and he thinks you can learn one in 3 months. So I'm going to interview him and try and figure out all his secrets.
That sounds like a 90s infomercial. You can learn any language in 3 months. Remember those speed readers? They would just go like this?
Yeah.
I tried that. No, I didn't actually. Just pretended to try it. I don't see how, you could probably get 50 words and be like, I know what that page is about.
Yeah, I think that is. You look at chunks, and so you're not reading exactly like this. I feel like you've got to be missing a little bit of the information.
Do that with Lord of the Rings. What happens with Frodo? No, this is what you get with me, okay? How do you feel about self-help books and stuff? You're sort of almost in that field, aren't you?
Apparently.
Apparently? What do you mean?
Well, apparently into the self-help. I would say that's actually exactly what I'm doing, is you've got the power to change things. Don't listen to whoever says you can't.
What about the book The Secret?
I haven't read The Secret.
I'm pretty sure it's just about visualization.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the secret. Visualize.
I'm not opposed to anything anymore. I've been so mind blown by too many things. Now someone says something, I'm like, who knows, man? It's plausible. Everything's plausible.
You know, there's 20 seasons of Ancient Aliens for you to watch.
Oh God, no, I can't go further. I don't want to go further. I will, but I don't want to.
I'm supposed to ask you if you know who Ben Bankus is.
Oh my God, yeah, I do. I went to elementary school with him.
And he's done videos for us. I know him pretty well now.
He's funny.
He is funny. So shout out Ben Bankus. You need to watch his Teresa Tam impressions if you haven't seen that.
I don't think those are funny.
You don't think that's funny?
Sorry, Ben.
Funny because it's not funny because it's mean, or because why?
I don't know.
Just not in general?
I just don't find it very funny.
Unbelievable.
I need something a little more intellectual.
Okay. So
He's gonna appreciate
you're
that.
a big Andrew Says guy then.
Who?
That's me.
Oh,
Wow.
sorry. Oh, this is going badly near the end.
There goes the card. She hates everyone we're associated with. Now without my card, it's Mikhaila Peterson on YouTube and Facebook and on Twitter. I'm going to forget your
Mikhailas
Alexa on Twitter. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got to do this. Not many people are interacting face to face these days.
True.
I think it's a big problem, and it's going to make. Secretly, I've been spitting on her this whole interview.
A little too close.
You just can't pick it up on the camera. But thanks a lot for being here. Anything else you want to say?
No, that was fun. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you. Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Go directly to rebelnews.com, and you can also find more of my content at Andrew Says on YouTube.